This is episode 103. Today, I interviewed Justin Sandler. He is founder and CEO at JustAether. He is an inspirational speaker and coach for success in business and personal life. In this episode, we take a look at the game of chess and what it can teach us about perfectionism and taking action to get what we really want. So let's listen. Real business, real people, real stories. Welcome to Real Business Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Benenati. So Justin Sandler,
Robert.
yes,
sir.
Finally, good to meet you in person.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Likewise.
I follow you on Instagram.
Thank you so much.
I see all the posts you put up. It's very motivational.
Thank you.
Inspiring.
Thank you.
And I said, you know what? I have to call Justin and meet him in person and find out a little bit about who he is and what is it that he does. So for the listeners, share with us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So on January 1st of this year, I just started my own company. It's called JustAether. And my services or what I do, or just to back up, the reason that I started it is because I believe that life is so precious, that it's short, that it's beautiful, that it's fragile, and that we should live it all out. And so I created this, and I'm doing motivational speaking, I'm doing coaching, and really just wanting to inspire people to lead their best life and really give them the tools to make that happen, to build that dream that they really want.
So you're on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yep. Facebook, LinkedIn, everything.
So your name is Justin Sandler, but you're the company name or the name on social media is JustAether?
Yep. So my Instagram, for everybody that would like to follow me, I do lots of videos on there, little 1-minute videos. So it's a fun platform for me. Is I am JustAether. So it's IAMJustAether. So the name of my company, I am JustAether.
So where'd you get the name Ether from?
So good question. So when I was first looking and studying these different brands and companies that I really admired, obviously a lot of the same companies that we probably all look to, Coca-Cola, Nike, Apple. And I liked the shortness of the names. I love Nike. I love their branding. And I saw that Nike is the Greek god of victory, which maybe a lot of people know. And so I looked up a list of all the Greek gods, thinking that maybe there was something on there that would be cool for me to have, kind of to play off Nike, but to be different enough that I'm not taking their name. And so I found Ether. And Ether is actually the Greek god of the upper air, the air that the gods breathe, like up in the stratosphere. And so I thought that was really cool because that's, I feel like, the life that we should be living at, that we should be living in this upper level of the most beautiful, most amazing version of whatever our life really is, of whatever that means to us. And so I thought that really kind of encapsulated the meaning of what I wanted the company to be and the message that I wanted to bring. And so, like most people when they're trying to choose a company name, it is usually not available, which was true for me as well. And so I was hanging out with a friend one day. He's my barber, actually, Anthony. So big shout out to him. He tells me I owe him a lot of money or royalties for this, which I don't think I'm going to give him. So I just have to take the shout out. But I love him. But anyway, so we were having a cigar one day and just kind of hanging out. And he was like, what about JustAether? Like Justin and Ether. And also I liked the name because it's JustAether. Like the only type of life that I'm interested in is the highest level, the most beautiful level, the most amazing level. Anything else I don't want. And so that's really what I want to bring to others. And I wrote it out. I liked the way it looked aesthetically with the J and then kind of lowercase and with the A and just the arches of the letters. And it spoke to me and I went with it. And I really like the name a lot.
So there was a connection.
It was a connection.
Which is very important.
I'm going to buy him a box of cigars, I tell him. So, it's not a royalties, but, he'll be okay.
Or a new pair of clippers or something,
maybe,
right?
Yeah, maybe give him a little extra tip on the next haircut or something, which I need a lot right now. We're filming this on quarantine time for coronavirus, so definitely need that haircut.
Okay. So what made you start this company? What made you start speaking and coaching? What really got you there?
So before working at this company, I was in real estate, which, by the way, I'm still in real estate. I have a referral business and partnership with a really, really great team. So I'm still have that as a service. But I was working in new home sales, which I loved. And I actually took a trip to Barcelona, Spain, which I'd really been wanting to go there for a long time. And it was one of my written goals before the year was up that I would do that. And so I did. And it was a really, really incredible experience. And while I was there, I kind of started to learn about how there are so many people that are really making incredible livings remotely, working online. And I thought that was so cool. And I felt like there's got to be some way for me to do something like that and have more freedom, more flexibility. I feel that life is so short, and I didn't want to live it in a way where I could maybe have 5 days of vacation a year or something like that. And maybe my work would give it to me off. Maybe they wouldn't. I just wasn't really okay with that. I didn't want to continue to live in my little cubicle. So that was a lot of it. What spurred that was just like, no, I want to be on my own terms. And so, but I formed the company because I think that I could add more value to others that way, that I could inspire them to do whatever it is that they want to be doing and to do it fully, and that maybe I can help them to provide some of the tools to make that happen. And so I felt I could add the most value that way and live my life on my terms the way I wanted to.
Excellent. I love that. I love the fact that you're bringing value and you're living your life and not life living you.
Yep. Yep.
So,
trying to, at least.
Yeah. Most people that go into business or become an entrepreneur, they do it for that reason. Number one, to have more free time, quality time with the family.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't work out like that. You end up working more hours on your business than you were at a 9-to-5.
Yep. That's been true for me too so far.
Well, these are some of the topics that I want to bring onto the podcast. And for those always thinking of, leaving their 9-to-5, that have been also wishing and have the dream of becoming an entrepreneur or starting a business or a side business parallel to their 9-to-5. How to help them fast forward that. So you did mention you went to Barcelona.
Yeah. Or
Great.
Actually, if I could, I just want to share something for a moment that you brought up that I think could maybe be valuable to the listeners, which will hopefully soon be in the thousands and millions.
Hope so.
Step by step. But I think that a lot of people want to know, I think a lot of people think about being an entrepreneur, starting their own company, and I think a lot of people want to know when is the right time to do that. And I think that's a really hard question for a lot of people to answer. So maybe I can share how I knew for me when to do that.
Please.
So if you follow me on Instagram, there was this video that I did one day. I was working out at night and finished my workout and went on the top deck of my apartment building. And I filmed this video called Invisible Risk. And essentially what I said in this video is that I feel it's very common that we all know the feeling of fear to take a certain action, because we feel that if we put ourselves out there and if we fail, we can really feel the fear of that, of not being good enough, of just losing our time or our money and going back to where we were. And it's very easy for us to see the fear or the downside of taking a certain risk and taking a certain action to put ourselves out there and attempt something, right? Whether that's professional life or personal life. But I think that what we don't always see is that there's also massive risk to staying exactly where we're at. So what I mean is that if I'm somewhere where I don't want to be and I'm going in a direction that I know I don't really want to be going on, not only is that risky, but I'm actually guaranteeing myself to fail. I'm guaranteeing that I'm not going to be where I want to be. And so I think that what a lot of people should maybe start thinking about when they're living their life, whether it's the entrepreneur side business of wanting to start that or even personal life, is yes, it might be scary to take a certain action or it might be uncomfortable. But I think when you'll know when it's right to take that action is when you feel deep down that it actually becomes more risky for you to not do it. It becomes more risky that you feel the pain of being where you are and continuing there on a direction that you're guaranteed that you don't want to go. And once you start to see the risk of that inaction, that invisible risk, I call it, because I think it's kind of a blind spot that we have. It's a hard thing for us to see, but if we can see that, it may spur us to take that action. And maybe for some people that action would be right now when they're done listening to this, and maybe that's not the case. It's really a very personal decision. But for me, when I was done recording that video, maybe within 10 to 15 minutes of getting back down to my apartment, I had this feeling of, yeah, I think I need to leave my job because what I'm doing is so risky to stay. And I think we don't often look at risk that way. I think for some reason we see the risk of taking an action, but we don't see the risk of inaction and of staying where we're at. So it's just something of a message that I really want to give to people is that, yes, understand that things are scary, whether business or personal life. You want to start that business or approach that guy or girl or whatever, but understand the risk too.
Interesting your perspective on that. I probably would see it from the regret standpoint, of living my life and then regretting I never tried something, or if I had an idea, a dream, not taking action is worse than just being still and letting time and life go by, and then always having that doubt. Would have it worked out?
Yeah.
Would have I succeeded? Well, now you don't know. You never took action.
You never took action. And I think just another thing to kind of go on top of what you're saying, which I really agree with, is I think a lot of people think, let's say that our age is 40 now, just to take a number. And let's say that we think our average lifespan is to 80. So let's say we think we're going to live to 80. And so we calculate, okay, well, we have these 40 years, so I'll just keep what I'm doing for now. And 5 to 10 years from now, I'll do this thing that I really want to do. And I think that's a very, very dangerous risk also, because we're calculating that we have this time that we don't really know that we have. We're assuming that we have it, but at least my past and the things that I've been through a lot of scary issues of like health, and life is very, very fragile. So what I would say to everybody is, don't calculate your life assuming that you have to the average age of your gender, or
tomorrow's
not
guaranteed.
Exactly. So understand that you're taking a very big risk by assuming that you're playing with this amount of time. And I would really encourage people to sprint towards their dreams every day, and sprint towards all of them. Like not only your professional, but your health, your personal. Maybe you love dance or golf or a sport. Your romantic or your family relationships, whatever all your goals are, your spiritual. I would say to sprint towards all of them, because you don't want to miscalculate on this thing that you don't know and then wish that you had known, but it's too late.
Well, besides that, and having that moment of and just saying, okay, I'm going to leave my job and just do what I really want to do.
Yeah.
What are your routines? What are your habits? Books, or who do you follow that really inspired you to think that way, and also helped you make that decision of opening up your own business, your coaching, and
I think so. About a year and a half ago, I started making some really, really massive changes. I actually, for many years, like I said, was struggling with health things, and then when I first got into real estate, it didn't go that great, like many people that get into real estate. So it was even the people that are successful in real estate now, most of them, it might have been hard in the beginning. And so I didn't do well at first, but about a year and a half ago, I hit a point where things started to turn around for me and I started to gain some momentum. And so I thought, okay, so now that I have some momentum, I feel like life is really a game of momentum, right? So when things are not as good, I think you kind of need to just put your head down and grind it out and push through. And sometimes it means kind of curling up in a ball and just taking your beating and then moving forward again.
Right.
And when we have this momentum, I think it means sprinting and gaining more. And so when I did start to gain some more of that momentum and I started to sell homes, I started to really research, okay, so what is it that these really successful people are doing that I'm not doing, which was probably a lot of things, especially a year and a half ago. And I found that there was certain things that they're all doing. And these millionaires and billionaires, they've really been studied so much. And there was just a template that they all followed. They all slept about 7 hours a night. So I thought, who am I to sleep less when they're obviously more busy than me? they're all eating healthy. They're all working out every day, which meant that the return on investment that they were putting in for what they were getting out was high, so that I should be making the time too. They were all reading an average of 50 books a year. And so I thought, okay, if they're all making time to read 50 books a year, who am I to say that I don't have that time? So certain habits like that were huge for me. Tony Robbins was a huge person that I listened to, especially in the beginning. And I think his talking about state, living in a peak state, was really transformational for me. So I would say to everybody listening, whatever it is that you want to accomplish, if it's going to be great, you have to be in a peak state to make that happen. And so I can tell you for myself with my career in real estate, it's really not possible to help people and help them to get homes if you're not living in that peak state to get those peak results.
So let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah, sure.
So
sure.
How do you live in that peak state? What do you do to be at that state?
Sure. So I think a lot of the things are some of the stuff that we talked about already: eating, sleeping, going to the gym, mass for me. So I'm Catholic, and everybody has their own form of spirituality or meditation, but I think having some form of that in your life. I think grooming, presenting yourself well, dressing well, keeping your home clean, keeping your car clean. I think monitoring your body language. Tony Robbins talks about the fastest way to change your psychology is to change your physiology. So we're actually feeling differently when we're in a certain position versus a different position. And so I think a big part of living in a peak state is first being aware of what type of state am I in. So for example, if Michael Jordan is in the NBA finals, his state on a scale of 1 to 10 is probably a 10 because it has to be, and he's ready to go out and make it happen. Mm-hmm. And if his state was a 3 or 4 on a scale of 1 to 10, his energy, his confidence, his focus, his poise, he wouldn't be able to make it happen. And so I think if people had to start anywhere of living in a peak state, I think it would be first understanding, okay, an awareness of what type of state am I living in now? If I had to rate myself on a scale of 1 to 10 of where's my confidence, my vibrancy, my focus, where am I? Am I ready to play in that World Series or in that Game 7 of whatever it is that we're trying to do, whether it's real estate or personal life? So first be aware, where is it that we are, I think? And then some of these habits of, okay, how can I keep myself here? When I see myself slipping, how can I make sure that I'm going back to those core habits to really keep me in that place that I need to be?
So you have to analyze yourself, really sit down, be honest with yourself. Is there a specific exercise that you do or you've done to really analyze and see it on paper? Okay, this is where I'm at, and this is where I want to be or need to be. And then work a plan how to get there.
At least for my state, I think it's going back to my basics. So for example, if I'm feeling a little more anxious or a little more depressed or irritable or off or lacking confidence, usually I can go back and say, okay, have I been eating? Have I been sleeping? Have I been working out? Do I have some form of spirituality? I have a morning routine that involves gratitude, which most people's morning routines do. Have I been doing that? And even my body language, honestly. I mean, when I'm feeling a little bit down, sometimes just correcting my body language can even start to influence my state very quickly. And so I think monitoring your state moment to moment throughout the day is very important of just, okay, what type, am I in a peak state right now? If I'm not, how can I adjust that? Because if we say we want these great results, we have to live in a peak state to get them. So if we say we want something and our state is not good and we know it's not possible to get that great result in that crappy state, then I think we have to constantly kind of monitor ourselves. Where am I now? Where am I now? How can I adjust or go back to my basics to make sure that I'm staying where I want to stay?
You know what? It's crazy. It's interesting. Everyone that I follow or talk to or interview that are successful and have certain standards, they all have that, sleep time. They have a structure. Sleep time. Is it a journal, reading books, meditating? It's the things that are really not related to success, but it takes you there.
It's a template. And for everybody, it's so funny when I talk about the reading thing because people are like, wow, you read 50 books, that's crazy. And what I want to say to people about the reading is, these people, and I have a YouTube video on this, 10 Habits of All Successful People, but it wasn't like some of these people were reading and some of them weren't, and it was an interesting observation. I thought it was kind of cool and I would try it. It was like they're all doing this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a mandatory thing for them. And they're seeing a massive return because this is a big amount of time you put in of 50 books a year. You know, there's a lot of hours, especially if you're not a fast reader, which I'm actually not.
That's a book a week.
It's a book a week.
Yeah.
And so what I would say to people is look at these items that we're talking about on this show, and that they're not, you know, our original ideas. There are other people too. Not as it would be cool if you did it. It would be nice if you did it. But if I don't do this, I'm guaranteed to not be successful. You know, so I view reading 50 books a year the same way I view that I have to sleep each night. I know that I cannot reach where I want to reach without it, because if everybody's doing it that's crushing it and I'm not, it just doesn't really make any sense. So look at those things that everybody's doing. If you see some people doing it, maybe question it, maybe not for you. But if everybody's doing it, I think there's something to that. And I think reading is one of those things.
For me personally, I have two things that I know affect me in
Mm-hmm.
a positive or negative way if I
Mm-hmm.
do it or I don't do it.
Yeah.
Is sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
I need at least 7 hours of sleep and
Yeah.
deep sleep.
Yeah.
So 7 to 8.
Yeah.
And what helps me disconnect my brain is actually I take magnesium at night.
Mm-hmm.
It sits right on my nightstand.
Yeah.
I have one. I think it's like 500 milligrams.
Yeah.
Pop one in, and it disconnects my brain waves
Yeah.
of thinking, of numbers and planning, and and that just gives me a deep state of sleep. So I could probably
Yeah.
sleep, 3 hours, and the first 3 hours are very deep,
Yeah.
rested sleep. I wake up at 6, and I feel like brand new.
Nice.
That's one. And the second important is some sort of exercise, being
Mhm.
active.
Yep.
The more active I am, the more energy I feel I have,
Yeah.
and the more energy I'll have throughout the day to, do the work I need to do.
Definitely.
So those two things are very important.
Yep.
I wish I could read more books than I do. I have a
Yeah.
library at home, and
Yeah.
they're all self-help and business, entrepreneurship, marketing, whatnot.
Yeah.
I always speed read through them.
Yeah.
Because interesting, each book usually has 10 chapters, 300
Mhm.
pages. But every time you read it, you get something different out of them.
Yeah.
So at a different stage of your life, at your moment throughout that year, you pick up a book and you always feel, I never read this. I never, came across this. So
Yeah.
I try to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I say when I have time. We all have time. We just got to make time.
Yep.
But yeah, those three things are important to me.
Yeah.
Besides, I try to meditate when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Usually in the morning, it works for me. But yeah, it's interesting how those little things actually help you, and you don't even realize they're related to how you're performing.
Yeah. Well, even another interesting thing I learned about these millionaires and billionaires is that on their weekends, they're not doing the daily grind things. They're doing more big picture things, like they're goal setting. They're kind of doing bigger planning of their lives. And I really think there's a lot of people out there who are just like, oh no, Justin, I'm just grinding and I've been sleeping less and eating less, but that's because I'm really pushing myself. And I would really say to everybody out there, to just be careful of that, because
That's not healthy.
it's not healthy, and your results are actually massively suffering that you want. So it's really part of the template of success to follow these things. I mean, if our highest performers in the world in terms of finances and our athletes and everything, if they're following eating and sleeping because they think that they have time to do it and they have more responsibility than we do, I think we kind of need to take that hint of, okay, so this must be really important. And if we want those biggest results, which we always do, right? Results are what matter. Then we got to follow this, I think.
I think that the resting and exercising gives you more focus, so you could be more productive in less time of work.
Absolutely.
So I could figure out that if I come to the office and I work between 11 and 2 p.m., I get more done than if I were here from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
throughout the day, I'll just be lazy, drinking coffee, trying to wake up because I didn't sleep or I didn't eat or I, missed several days of exercise. So I feel with that, in less time, I do more things. I get more things done.
Yeah.
I think that's where the correlation comes in.
Yeah. And I mean, not to sound overly business-like, but I mean, results are the only things that matter. I mean, when I was younger, I mean, I'm still young now, but I used to measure my productivity in hours of like, okay, I worked X amount of hours. But, once you get into a 100% commission job or you're an entrepreneur or whatever, it only matters what you actually accomplish. So if you're working 80 hours a week and you're not actually accomplishing something, it really doesn't matter. So I think kind of like these running backs, these absolutely elite athletes where they're waiting for their moment where they just sprint. I think we really have to be living in this peak state where we're able to really crush it in whatever we're doing, because it's the result of that thing that we did that matters, not the number of hours we put in.
Got it. Makes sense. So you do, you speak Spanish, right? You speak Spanish?
I do. I'm not, I'm not native, but I would say I speak pretty fluently. Yeah.
So because going back, you went to Spain. Did you practice there?
I did. I definitely. So I lived actually in Palma de Mallorca, which is, there's Mallorca, Menorca, and Ibiza, which are 3 islands that are right off of Spain. And so I lived there for 2 months, and then I've been back to Spain 1 or 2 other times. So also living here, we're in Orlando, Florida, for any of our listeners that don't know, but lots of opportunities to practice Spanish here, which I've definitely tried to take.
What else do you speak? I know there's
I speak Chinese also.
Mandarin.
Yep, Mandarin.
Nice.
More rusty on that. I became fluent in Chinese between the ages of 14 and 18. I'm 32 now. I haven't really used Chinese much since I was 18, but I think if I went back to China, I think it would come back quickly. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Now you have a story that's that you told me. You were a chess player at a very very young age.
I was very young
and very successful at it.
At the young age I was. Yeah.
You mind sharing that story? I find it fascinating.
Yeah, sure. So before our cameras were on, our microphones were on, we were talking about a number of different things, Robert and I, and one of the things we were talking about that I think a lot of people find a difficult time with, I think including myself. I mean, we're all human beings, and so I think we all feel this, is just the struggle with perfectionism, or the struggle with, what if we don't feel ready to do something, or what if we take that action and that action isn't good enough? What if we should prepare more? What if we should rehearse more before really going for it, just to make sure that it's really, up to our emotional needs of where we need it to be? And so...
And these are some of the reasons why people hesitate to start a business, to launch a
business. It's terrifying.
To get on YouTube.
To do any of this
stuff.
To do
any of the stuff.
To launch this podcast, which we're talking about, to start the YouTube, to be an entrepreneur, to approach the guy or the girl. Anything really exciting and amazing is also scary, because, you could fail. And if you fail, what does that mean about yourself as a person? So kind of just to go back to
the story of
the
chess, related to trying to be perfect at everything you do. So
absolutely. So when I was in kindergarten, I started playing chess, and my first chess tournament, I won all my games, and I was the state champion. I was first in the state. Fun fact, that was actually the day my little brother was born. My youngest brother, Zach, he's my baby. So shout out to Zach. He's 26. So he's not really a baby, but still I see him that way. He's also taller than me. And so I did that. And then I was good at chess at a very early age, at a young age. And I actually was third in the entire country, third in the nation. I lost one game in that tournament. It was to the person who ended up being the first in the country. His name was Stephen Kendrick. I still remember. I should probably look him up. I could probably find him on Facebook or something and be like, hey. But anyway, so it's good at a young age. But chess, for anybody that's never played tournament chess before, it's actually very, very intense. Even at a young age, it's intense. And you have a stop clock, and you hit the clock, and then it's the other person's turn, and they hit the clock, and it's your turn. And different tournaments have different amounts of time, but maybe you have like 1 or 2 hours each, let's say. Some tournaments you have more. And so these games really, really, really drag out, and they're very intense. And so I would have my games routinely were like 2 or 3 hours, even like as a little 5-year-old.
So you get all that time because you have to plan out your next 7 moves.
Yeah,
or more.
Like as a little kid, I remember I was trying to see the entire game in my head for each move I played. So I thought, okay, so if I go here, this is how the whole game plays out. If I go here, and I would just think forever. And maybe that had its pluses and minuses, but that was the way that I thought. And so the reason that you do that in chess is because if you make one wrong move, you can lose all the momentum. And if that other person's good, you can sort of lose the game off of a move or two. And in chess, maybe if there's 5, 6, 7 rounds, if you lose 1 or 2 games, you're out. And so there's really not a high margin for error. And so I became very, I guess, perfectionistic, if you will, or very afraid of failure because there was such a high cost to failure in chess. It's like 1 or 2 games and you're done, 1 or 2 wrong moves and you're done. And so I really kind of grew up that way before my working life. And I got into the working world, and they kind of make you want to make decisions faster, which was harder for me because I thought, okay, well, what if it's not good enough? What if I do this wrong? I would rather prepare. I want to make sure it's perfect. I want to master it. And so what we were talking about off the microphones was that, you know, we're both a little bit this way, right? Where whether it's with the podcast or with anything we're doing, that we want to do it with excellence. And so how do we weigh this wanting to be excellent and really do a great job with, you know, when do we allow ourselves to actually start, you know? And sometimes those two can conflict with each other, right? That sometimes our desire to be excellent is kind of perfectionistic, which is a little bit afraid of failure, which makes us not start, and we get kind of paralyzed. And so what I started learning by researching all these successful people that I thought was very interesting is that they're all taking massive action. More the way that they do decisions is they don't assess in like massive detail and like ruminate forever and then maybe take an action. They gather all the information the best they can. They take an action. They kind of fail, take an action, fail, take an action, fail, take an action. They keep adjusting. And then they get to where they want to go. And so I thought, okay, so if the way that I'm making decisions of being so perfectionistic that I'm completely paralyzed is not working that well, and if the way that all these successful people are making decisions is kind of through this massive willingness to take an action and repivot with this new information, you know, maybe I should be making decisions how they are. And so I started to do that and really saw a lot of results. And so I think what can help other people to do that, because I think that can still sound like kind of a tricky thing the way that I'm saying it. But I think what can help people is think of your success a little bit like a hockey stick curve. So in the beginning of that curve, it's a little more shallow. Like you don't see the progress right away. I think the reason people are scared to put themselves out there is because they think they're supposed to be so successful right away, like that it's supposed to hit a certain level right away, and that if it's not that level right away, they're going to feel bad and they're going to feel like a failure.
Oh, with social media now and everything, you know, the young crowd at least, you know, everyone's counting likes and followers. So they feel like if they don't have enough likes or following or subscribers, they're failing. And that's not usually the case. A lot of people actually watch your post, for example, but we're such in a habit just scrolling that we don't even take the time to like. So it doesn't mean it's not being watched or you're not being known. It's just that you can't control that. But I think we have to be patient at the beginning, and that goes with any business. Yeah. Things start slow. Yeah. And then it just starts. It becomes viral, and then you just make it happen. But so you think that the way you were raised by playing chess, being a perfectionist, did that affect you in a negative way to a certain point? Or
in a business standpoint, I think that it did. I mean, I think it taught me. The good things that it taught me is it taught me to think strategically, and it taught me to intensely focus on something until it was done. So I can sit down with something for 12 hours until it's done and finish it. And I like that. I like kind of the adrenaline of the focus. And then like the single-handed, like, okay, like let me really, really zone in on this thing that I'm doing. But in the business world and in real life, you do have to take action, and I don't think any success is possible without massive action. And with massive action, there's going to be, I guess, quotes, failure. But I think just to go back to the social media, for example, I think that everybody wants to know how to get 1,000 or 10,000 or 1 million followers, but nobody wants to know how to get 1 follower. And you get 10,000 followers the same way you get 1. And you cannot get to 10,000 before you first get to 1, and then to 2, and then to 3. And so I think this is another common, it's another common mistake that I think our minds make, where we see finished products, but we don't see it in pieces, and we don't understand what it took to get there. And so I think people need to be patient when they see those people with 5,000 likes. The amount of work that it took to build what that person built of that platform.
We don't want to go through the process. We just want to get to the 10,000 quick.
Yeah, but I think people feel like they're a failure when they have 20 followers and 1 like. And, that's not a failure. Also, keep in mind that some of these people, for one, a lot of them buy followers, but the engagement rate is what matters. So, for example, if you have 20 followers and you just got 5 or 10 likes, your engagement rate is amazing. It means that people are engaging with your platform. If somebody has 10,000 followers and 50 or 100 likes, that's not good. That engagement rate is bad. So just measure it for where you are. We have to, for some reason, we always measure like, okay, I want to be like Michael Jordan. And if I'm not, I don't want to start practicing my free throws. And it's like, our brain for some reason gets confused about, yes, there's this big, beautiful thing, but that big, beautiful thing was built. That person with that Instagram file, it was built. That person on the podcast, Tim Ferriss, for me getting on YouTube, PewDiePie or whoever you want to talk about, these things were built over time.
Yeah, you cannot compare yourself to these big names. Yeah. They started somewhere as well.
Yeah.
We, like you say, we look at the end product and not what it takes and the time it takes. And if you talk to any of these big names, they will tell you how it started and how difficult it was, and everything wasn't perfect and easy. So
yeah, and allowing yourself to fail. I mean, people, we don't.
It's not
ourselves.
Failure. I always say it's not failure if you learn from it.
Yeah.
It's you just find a way that it didn't work. It didn't work like this. Okay, so that tells me I have to try a different route until it does work.
Yeah.
So we go from chess to perfection, and then you change perfection into kind of action. Massive action. Let's call it action.
Well, I try to. I can always be better about taking massive action. Probably we all can, but
yeah. But for a perfectionist, whatever they do is never perfect enough, so they never take off with it because they're still waiting for it to be better and perfect. And so I get it.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, thank you. It was very interesting. Thank you for being on the show. Yeah. If people want to look you up, follow you, tell me again where they can find you.
Absolutely. So I'm on YouTube at JustAether TV. So JustAether TV. You can find me on Instagram at I am Ether. And I'm doing speaking, motivational speaking. I'm doing coaching. So I can put my phone number out there. It's 407-967-8391. My email is justin@justaether.xyz. So I'm really, really happy to help anybody that might be in need of those services. And I'm also really grateful to be here with you and have the opportunity to be on the show with you and with your listeners.
Perfect. Excellent. I wish you all the best success. I know you're going to do great at this. You're a natural.
Thank you.
I'll love to have you back on the show and see, how it's going for you.
Absolutely. It would be a pleasure.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
If you like the topic in today's episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on iTunes or visit Real Business Podcast for more information. Thank you. Until next week, stay real.